Hello, welcome again to the online Sunday School class of the Friendship class of the First Christian Church of Great Bend, Kansas. I'm Lane Moore. As we've been doing for several weeks, we will continue with online Sunday School for another, 2 or 3 weeks anyway. We are going to begin again in class Sunday School in September. And as I said last week, I need a count on the folks that are planning on coming to Sunday school and those who need books. Now, so far, I've only heard from two of you, and we're going to need more than that. Here's my high tech graphic to send your response to my email. I really would like to know whether you're going to come or you're not going to come. If you're not going to come, we understand. I mean, this is a situation unprecedented in our lives. So, but I would like to know. I don't want to show up at Sunday school class with 2 or 3 books and 15 people come. So, let me know. Um, okay, as we've been doing all along, we're studying inspiring Bible stories for trying times. We know the trying times. The Israelites faced many in the Old Testament, and we're talking about the time they were enslaved in Egypt. Began that last week. We'll talk about it again today, at least one more week, maybe 2 more weeks. If you recall, quick review, Joseph was sold into slavery to his brothers into Egypt, and Joseph became the number 2 man in Egypt, and his brothers followed him due to famine in their homeland, and the people of Israel were favored because of Joseph's status, and everything worked out great for a while. But now it's 400 years later, and the people of Israel are no longer favored, they are enslaved. And Moses was a Hebrew baby. And at the time of Moses' birth, the Pharaoh in Egypt put out a decree that all the newborn male babies were to be tossed into the Nile River. So to save him, his mom floated him in a homemade floating bassinet into the Nile River, knowing that Pharaoh's daughter frequented the Nile at that particular time of day, floated Moses by. The daughter took favor on Moses and raised him as a prince. Now, once Moses grew up, he observed an Egyptian beating a Jew and killed the Egyptian, buried him in the sand, and then, in fear of being found out, took off on the run to Midian. And while he was in Midian, he married, had a son. But meanwhile, back in Egypt, people of Israel are still being oppressed and enslaved, and they cry out to God for help. So one day Moses is tending his sheep out by Mount Horeb, which also is known as Mount Sinai, and he sees this bush catch on fire. And he watches this bush, and he sees that the bush is not burning up. So he walks over to the bush, and God starts talking to him from the bush, God tells Moses he needs his help in freeing the people of Israel from Pharaoh's oppression. Now, Moses says, well, that's really not my job, God. I'm not good at that kind of thing. So they have a conversation about that, and eventually they come to an agreement that Moses will do it as long as Aaron can do his talking for him. Moses is a stutterer and doesn't have a lot of confidence talking in front of people, so Aaron's going to do Moses' speaking for him. God also gives Moses some signs to show the people of Israel that Moses really is sent from God. And one of those is taking his shepherd's staff, throwing it on the ground. That staff then turns into a snake. Pick the snake up by the tail and turns back into a staff. Also, takes his hand, sticks it inside his coat, and pulls it out. It's got leprosy all over it, puts it back inside, pulls it back out, and it's healed. So those are two things that Moses is going to use to convince the people of Israel that God really sent him. Let's see. So God, Aaron, Moses' brother, he's still back in Egypt. So God tells Aaron he needs to go meet Moses at Mount Horeb. And then they go back to Egypt to talk to Pharaoh, people of Israel first, and then talk to Pharaoh. So they talk to the Israeli leaders, show them the staff, show them the leper's hand and how it's healed. And so they believe that Moses is sent from God. So now they go to Pharaoh, and they ask Pharaoh to allow the Israelites to leave Egypt, go into the desert so they can worship the Lord. Well, Pharaoh's not having it, and it makes him really mad. And so he doubles up on the Israelites' workload. Now, the Israelites were the workforce for the government improvement projects. And so one of the jobs of the Israelites was making bricks. And so they would make bricks with clay and with straw. They'd have to dig the clay. Pharaoh would provide the straw. They'd mold them, leave them sit in the sun to bake. But now Pharaoh says, yeah, got to get your own straw. I'm not supplying the straw anymore. But you still have to make the same number of bricks. So you go get the straw, you make the bricks, but you can't make any less bricks than you've been making before. So the Israelites, they're looking at Moses like, well, a lot of help you are. You're supposed to come help us. Now we get twice as much work. Probably where the phrase originated with friends like you, who needs enemies? So Moses goes back to Pharaoh. Pharaoh's still not having it. He asks him to let the people go into the desert and worship God. He asks him another time. He shows him the staff and snake show, but that doesn't help. In fact, Pharaoh's got his own magicians, and he brings them out, and they throw sticks down, and they turn into snakes too. Now, God allowed that, maybe even orchestrated it. Now, why, I really don't know, but his heart's hard. He's not letting the people of Israel go. So the next day, Moses catches Pharaoh on his morning walk along the Nile, probably about the same place where Moses was floated as a baby and found by Pharaoh's daughter. Now, this is a different Pharaoh. This isn't the same Pharaoh that was Pharaoh when Moses had to blow town. It's a new one. So, okay, so he asked Pharaoh again to let the people of Israel leave when Pharaoh's out on his walk. Pharaoh won't do it. So Moses, through God, unleashes a series of plagues on Egypt, from turning the Nile to blood. Now, I'm not going to go through every detail of all these plagues. It is very interesting reading. So we're in Exodus, of course. And if you want to read about all these plagues and all of the specifics of the conversations with Moses and Pharaoh, just start about, chapter 5 and read through chapter 12. Okay, let's see. Pharaoh's on his walk. Moses catches him, asks him to let the people of Israel go. Um, the old spiritual hymn, Let My People Go. Of course, that's where this originated. Um, so, the series of plagues began with turning the Nile into blood, um, progressed to a huge frog population over the whole country of Egypt, um, plague of lice, plague of flies, plague of dead livestock, boils, hail. This isn't golf ball size hail. This isn't the kind of hail that the adjuster comes out and gives you a new roof. This is the kind of hail that put holes in your roof and kills people and animals. Um, Now, Pharaoh, he agreed after the frog plague. He said, okay, he's got, frogs living with him, living in his bed, living in his kitchen. And he says, okay, get rid of the frogs and you can go. So God got rid of the frogs. Then Pharaoh reneged. Same deal with the flies. He says, okay, I can't take these flies anymore, so get rid of the flies and you can go. And God got rid of the flies and Pharaoh reneged. Um, then finally, it's time for the locusts. So God sends the locusts, and they're just chewing up everything in their path. They're eating all the crops, everything. God says, okay, get rid of the locusts and you can go. Well, God blows the locusts out into the Red Sea, brings up a big wind, and then Pharaoh says, just kidding, no, can't go. So, the last plague is the death of the firstborn. And it's the death of the firstborn Egyptians, of course, not the firstborn Israelites. Firstborn people, firstborn livestock. And God gave very specific instructions to the Israelites on how they were to be spared. And you'll find those specific instructions beginning with the 12th chapter of Exodus. The main part of that recipe was a year-old lamb, could be a sheep, could be a goat, without defect, and the Israelites were to slaughter it at twilight. Now let me read to you from chapter 12, verse 21. Then Moses summoned all the elders of Israel and said to them, go at once and select the animals for your families and slaughter the Passover lamb. Take a bunch of hyssop, dip it into the blood in the basin, and put some of the blood on the top and on both sides of the doorframe. Not one of you shall go out the door of his house until morning. When the Lord goes through the land to strike down the Egyptians, he will see the blood on the top and sides of the doorframe and will pass over that doorway, and he will not prevent the destroyer to enter your houses and strike you down. Obey these instructions as a lasting ordinance for you and your descendants when you enter the land that the Lord will give you as he promised. Observe this ceremony. And when your children ask you, what does this ceremony mean to you? Then tell them, it is the Passover sacrifice to the Lord, who passed over the houses of the Israelites in Egypt and spared our homes when he struck down the Egyptians. Then the people bowed down and worshiped. The Israelites did what the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron. At midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sat on the throne, to the firstborn of the prisoner who was in the dungeon, and the firstborn of all the livestock as well. Pharaoh and all his officials and all the Egyptians got up during the night, and there was loud wailing in Egypt, for there was not a house without someone dead. You know, Jesus was in Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover when he was crucified. The Israelites celebrated the Passover every year from the time they left Egypt. That's one of their main feasts, and Jesus was in Jerusalem for the Passover celebration. So as the Passover lamb was sacrificed to save the people of Israel, Jesus is our Passover lamb that saves us from sin. Please bow with me. God, you are the one and only God. We know as you saved the people of Israel from Pharaoh, you will save us from the plagues of our world, whether it is disease or sin. In Jesus' name, amen.